Okay. All right, so thanks everyone for being here. This is a Fund 8, what we're calling a discovery session, where Mercy and I, Mercy representing the funded proposers and I representing the CAs, have just been doing a lot of hearing of different accomplishments and challenges across this fund. It's really good practice to take the time to, as the community, to see how our processes work, how our tools work, how we work together. So we're going to take some time here, just as in a more of an open discussion, to let different things come up that we're wanting to consider, and then hopefully think about how we might address those things. It's one thing to talk about the things that are going on. It's another thing to sort of gel together and think about how we might resolve and plan for future funds overall, but especially for the coming fund. And I think in this fund, we noticed that there's some space for us to adjust parts of the proposals process that then sort of leads downstream to the CA process. And the CA process really went through that. So for those of you who are active CAs or who are usually come to this CA group, we spent a lot of the past few weeks and months upgrading based on things that happened in Fund 7. So now we're hoping to look at the whole process, including the proposals pathway, and make sure that these things sync and that we can think about the things that we notice and what we would do differently. So want to encourage us to do that. And maybe I will just open the space here, and we'll try to, because there's probably a lot of different sort of collective issues. Maybe we'll try to like bring them up, identify what the real like cluster of the issue is, things that are related to it, and then try to maybe come up with like 5 or 7 areas. I don't know, we'll let it naturally happen, but it'd be nice for us to get a sense of what things we could work on as groups and how we could collaborate on it. So I'll just kick it to Mercy to add to that, because we really sort of came up with it together based on conversations that we've had, come up with the need to do this together. So Mercy, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Nadia. So basically, Nadia has said it all. She came up with this, and I'm sort of tagging along almost. So thanks, Nadia, for the organization that has gone into this. We want to emphasize that this is both a positive and a negative thing. Anybody that wants to start with the things that went great, we can start with that. Or if we want to end on a more of a positive note, that's also good. So, as Nadia has said, we will just let it flow. But yeah, if anything was amazing, let's remember to say that as well. And, it can be said in the beginning, or, it can be sort of as a wrap up, so that we leave on a positive note. But yeah, it's also nice to start on a positive note as well. So yeah, I appreciate everyone being here. Let's go.
All right, and maybe because there's a lot of us, you can just do your hand raised and we'll go in the order of that. And then before we move on to a new topic, well, I'm assuming that we'll have a few as we start, we'll try to just open for any comments on the topic, and then we'll move to a new topic by hands. So we'll start there. We might set a record for the shortest after town hall here too, if we don't have
Quite agree.
Do we have any new either proposers or CAs? Because sometimes new people and their perspective can be really completely, it's novel. So if anybody, put in a proposal for the first time, or this CA work for the first time, I think it would be nice for you to, just tell us what you were expecting and what you actually, realized.
James.
First time CA. It was really good experience. I didn't know exactly what to expect sort of getting into it. I didn't realize you'd actually have to put so much effort into reviewing each proposal. To actually get a grasp of what's going on, you got to spend a bit of time reading, rereading. Depending on the proposal, you might have to sort of jump out of the information they've given you, even, which all takes time, but it kind of gets you sort of familiar with the projects, gets you excited about some of the stuff that's happening. One of the things that I found that for the next fund is definitely going to be something that I'll be trying to do, is looking at proposals beforehand and giving feedback, because I didn't do that this time. I didn't have the opportunity. I didn't realize how important it was. Obviously there's a lot of proposals out there from people who've been involved in Catalyst for a while, have done several funds, and they've kind of got their proposal technique down to a T. So then you can get all the information needed. It's all laid out well, it's understood, and it's easy to rate those proposals. But I did find it was probably the first couple I did were actually very good proposals. The third one was a great idea, but they just didn't present it very well, and I immediately was just sitting there going, oh, they just needed a nudge in this direction, and it would knock them up at least a star. And so that was something I sort of think is very worth making clear to new CAs, that little bit of time and effort beforehand can sort of pay dividends, because you don't want to be where you can see when there's a genuine proposal that with good intentions behind it, and they've just made a mistake. That's very different than someone trying to game the system, and those people deserve that little nudge that could mean that they get funded. But yeah, really good experience. It's really got me thinking and wanting to get more involved, and I've got lots of little ideas sort of springing off in different directions in my head, because there's so much so many opportunities. Just looking at these different proposals gets your mind working. So it's been a great experience. Thank you.
Thanks.
Great, James. Yeah, one of the things that has come up in a few of our conversations that have been happening here, these open discussions, is the opportunity that was for commenting and for helping proposers a lot more upfront prior to the close of the proposal submissions to that deadline, to help be more collaborative during that period of time. And that's very valuable for CAs, because they're getting the process of reviewing that. So I think that there was a little bit of a difference of the timeline cadence here in this fund because of the deadline being pushed back. So that may have had some outcome there. And I think that's an opportunity that we think about how we might encourage or organize that, so that there's a little bit more involvement there. It seems to make everything a little bit better. It makes the CAs a little bit more involved, and it makes the proposers have to really think about how the thing that makes perfect sense to them and maybe has been reviewed by a few peers, how it really lands for someone who's reviewing it fresh. So any comments on before we move to Scott, on what James said or on that particular topic?
Well, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, as far as what James was saying, I think like in that instance, like it would be great, kind of like Nadia said, to have that area, that time before the CAs actually write their assessments. But in your assessment of that proposal, you can also kind of guide the proposer in that direction, and that's actually it's beneficial. And it's actually it's considered a great characteristic of a CA to actually guide a proposer in that direction.
Yeah, if I can just, I did try to do that, but something I thought as well, I didn't know how practical it would be. Obviously, everything you're putting down in your feedback is potentially going forward for a voter to read. I wondered if there'd be any relevance in having an extra box so you could explain your comments a bit deeper to to the proposer, because in the depth of feedback that you could give in that sort of rationale of your score, you might actually be detracting from the project that could still get voted on. That was just one thought I had about it when I was trying to give rationale. I didn't want to sort of, if it was a good project, I didn't want to sort of downgrade the project by my comments. It may have still been, you know, worth a 3-star, but then with negative comments in that rationale, you know, it could give the perception of a lower rating.
Good. Okay, great. Alan, you wanted to say something about this topic?
Yeah, and I'll also lower my hand because it's related what I was going to raise. So I think what I've heard James talking about there is, I mean, what we did is we looked at the advisory notes, the guidance for the CAs as we were writing the proposals. And I've written quite a few proposals for very big infrastructure projects in my time. So I've done a bit of proposal writing. You always go and look at the questions that the person that's going to be reading the proposal is going to be asking, and write those. And there is a bit of a technique to writing them. So positive feedback was we put our first proposal in Fund 7 and were successful. And what I noticed in Fund 8, in the formatting of the forms, is it was a lot more structured in terms of write about the solution and the impact, write about feasibility, write about auditability. Now, we had done that because we saw the guidance. Now, in Fund 8, you've actually put the structures in. And I think, because what I also heard James saying is there are really good ideas that don't know the technique of writing. And so the more help that we can put in that direction and pulling out some of those really good examples that the CAs will be seeing and having them as an evidence base of this is how you explain stuff, this is how you write. Because I think that's the technique. It's articulating something which is in a mind with people who might not have that skill and experience of doing, and you know, we can be losing good projects.
Yeah.
So,
Really good. It seems like it was that the improvement of having the proposals categorized was a big hit for the CAs. Yeah, that was one big piece of feedback.
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and another thing that sort of goes in this bucket is, you know, we talk a lot about having people with expertise in the area contribute to the thinking behind the proposal. And sometimes that's hard because on the other side, if you evaluate the idea, we have very specific evaluation criteria, right? We're evaluating it based on impact, feasibility, auditability, not based on the idea itself. And that idea conversation is really helpful to have prior, but is not really appropriate. So it does give us a space to really have focus on that and maybe involve people who have categorical expertise to be able to give that feedback. So yeah, I really appreciate everyone's comments here. Go ahead, Alan.
Can I follow on that?
Please.
So some of the big infrastructure projects that I wrote tenders for, and these were in hundreds of millions of dollars. There's the narrative writing, right, which is about telling the story. All right, it's about why my ability to deliver what you need is better than anyone else's, and it's story writing. Now, at the moment, the structure there is very it's very structured, and there are 3 criteria that you're going to be measured against, and there's not really the opportunity there to actually do the pitch. Tell the story. You know,
Is there,
sorry, Mercy.
Al, I'm wondering if there's a pitch deck. Could that possibly solve that problem, or you think that there is still a place for long form?
I think it's a click away, Mercy. The problem is you have to click there to read it.
Right.
And you know, I think it's that important that you should have that little space. You know, don't go off and write War and Peace, but but just a bit of space where you can make your pitch and you can tell it in your own words,
Right.
as
Right.
an explanation of here's
Everything.
what the solution is. Because you know, when you write things, when you write pitches, it's about really articulating in your own words what you see the problem as being. We covered this off yesterday, didn't we, Mercy? The same thing of being really clear about the problem and what the solution is. And I think the problem with a lot of ideas that I've seen outside of Catalyst, like I was talking with James at Gimbal Labs the other day, and we came up with problem solving rather than problem searching. And there are an awful lot of ideas out there that are solutions searching for a problem, and it's the wrong way round. It's the wrong way round. So I think having that structure of tell the story, but tell us what the problem is, tell us what the solution is, because the only fields you have there for that at the moment are character constraints, so 140 characters.
No, that's fair. That's fair. And Daniel was
I'm a damn good storyteller.
and you want to use that. No, all that I want to add to this is that Daniel was actually asking if this, this sort of structure has been useful. And obviously, a lot of people are saying that it's been useful, but maybe what we probably need, maybe for Fund 9, I don't know if that's still implementable, is sort of a space for anything else you want to add in your own words kind of thing. That's what I'm hearing, right? Yeah.
To be honest,
Okay.
we were like this close, actually, sorry for jumping into adding that box, but we didn't know like if that would be too much or like creating a bit of a confusion. So if we can come to a recommendation what the purpose of that box would be, I think, again, it's just adding another field, and it's something we almost considered to put in, but we decided we've changed so much that we didn't want it to be like too overwhelming. So for Fund 9, I think we can definitely look into like adding, freestyle box or something like that, where people can just share the stuff they haven't in the other boxes or haven't felt like there was an appropriate place for them to share them. So that's definitely something possible, I think.
And the idea, though, I think that James was sharing earlier, Daniel, was this and correct me if I'm wrong, James, was just the concept of maybe having that box only be shared with the proposer, so that you can just say, hey, here's a few thoughts that I had that I didn't want to share with everyone because I didn't want it to sound negative or anything. But, I mean, I don't know that it needs to be done, but I think that's what you were kind of aiming at, right, James? Maybe something just between the CA and the proposer.
It sounds like there's one front of house and like one proposer side, which is telling the story, and then one CA side. I don't know if that complicates things a lot, but these are good things that we can start to think about. We'll probably not make like hard, fast decisions today or solve things fully today, but we're more coming up with some ideas and seeing where we can take them. So do you feel like that encapsulates what you both said? Okay, very good. Any other comments on this topic before we move to Vanessa? Okay, great. And then I also thought I'd mention last, not everyone feels comfortable talking. So if you have something you want to put in the chat, just throw it in the chat and we'll look at it that way and we'll have someone read it for you.
Yeah. One more comment, if I may, about the feedback stage. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I think, Aaron, if you wouldn't mind, I think Vanessa is next. So maybe we'll look at Vanessa next and we'll come to you. Great.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, there's a couple of things that I wanted to raise, one from the CA side and one from the couple from the proposer's side, actually. This time round, I saw a lot of CAs they'd give a rationale where they'd go, yeah, this is great, this is fantastic, it's brilliant, it's a wonderful thing. And then their rating was 3. I think there's been a little bit of discussion of this on Telegram, but I think there might be some need to clarify what each rating is actually supposed to mean. And I'm personally questioning whether we need 3 at all. I mean, let's say on auditability, it's either auditable or it's not auditable. Is there a place for, I don't know, I'm not sure. So I think maybe there could be 1, 2, 3 or 4 stars. Do we need 5? I'm not sure. On the proposer's side, what I'm seeing is a lot of inexperienced people who don't know how to write a proposal. I think there was a couple of questions on the proposal submission form which I saw being persistently misunderstood by proposers. So I think it needs a rewrite to make it clearer exactly what information is being asked for from them. And maybe also we need to help potential proposers the same way as we have lots of training workshops for CAs. Maybe we need to have workshops if you're thinking of proposing in Catalyst, not to advise you on your proposal, but just say, look, this is what this question means. This is the information you have to give, because it's really frustrating when you see a great idea, but they haven't answered the question. It drives me nuts. And then I think this is going to be controversial. I think it's disagreeing with James and a couple of other people who spoke. I think we need word limits. People are writing essays. And it's hard for a native speaker to keep up with a 3,000 word essay, never mind someone whose first language isn't English. People need to be reassured that they don't need to write a massive essay. If the questions are clear, they can just answer it and give the information that's required. Maybe actually the answer is to have this separate section where you can just like, you know, freestyle if you want to. But what I worry about is that then people who do freestyle will get rated higher than people who just answer the question. But to help the CAs and to help the proposers and to make it more accessible, I think word limits would really help. And that's that.
Really, really good. You got some good feedback comments to that there. So one of the things we should put on the table here is that we recognized in this process, when we got to the CA part, that the proposals section needs some updating to align more, not to align, but to sort of respect the amount of upgrade that the CA guides and suggestions got, because then there's the ability for that continuity across those two roles. And the proposal workshop and just having that same kind of opportunity for learning and for expectations, it seems like that's something that we're going to all be able to work on, is look at the proposal guides here and think about what the like onboarding is for proposers and how they're supported through this time. Is that what you're thinking? Just a little bit more of like best practices, best, how to answer things, Vanessa?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I think so.
Okay, good. I think that might be like a nice group to get together, sort of like the word is not like maybe preparing. How do we prepare proposers to get things done in a way that makes the most sense? Good. So
I just want to ask a clarifying question, Vanessa. Can you give an example of, say, impact? Was it, say, the impact, or was it the visibility, or was it the auditability that you found that some proposers didn't quite understand? Because I myself found that brief, right, and that they're quite guiding. So can you be specific, just for maybe if there's a working group after this, so they know exactly what we're dealing with?
Okay, I mean, I saw issues in most of the questions from some people when I was CAing, but I think the most common one was auditability. People didn't understand what it meant.
Okay.
And I just felt like sometimes people didn't know what they were being asked and what kind of information they needed to give. So it was kind of a scattergun approach, and they just probably maybe wasted their time putting loads of information, hoping that some of it would be what we needed. But sometimes they hit it and sometimes they didn't. But the way the questions are phrased, it's not as clear as it could be, I don't think. I mean, I've done quite a lot of writing application forms for funders across the UK, and I just think you've really got to think hard about how you do it, because you need to tell people what you need to know, rather than just leaving them kind of free to go, oh, I'm just going to chat about my proposal, because some people are confident doing that and some people are not. And it's not fair.
Thanks.
Really good. I'm also thinking as you're talking that maybe this like extra window for the CAs could be a little bit directed, like advice for proposal related to improving their idea, or something that gives a little bit of context. So it's not like write a book here, whatever you like, that kind of a thing. So maybe we consider making it broad, but still give a little bit of context, so people don't just start writing whatever they want, if that's what we want to accomplish. Benjamin.
Yeah, I wanted to kind of bring up a bit of a new topic, just in case anybody else had something else they wanted to share on that last one first. Okay, all right. And it is related, but to something actually that James was mentioning that I found when I was, assessing some of these proposals is here you are, you're reading this amazing idea that just hasn't really given any detail in the budget, or it hasn't, some area, let's just say one area, whether it's the budget or anything else, is so unclear and so unsatisfactory to assess that you can't give it any more than maybe 3 stars, and of course, like I found myself, and this might help some of the things that people are saying so far, but I found myself as I was writing the assessment, writing in there, if the assessment is not, and I've seen this in past people's assessments too. I think it's a brilliant way. I got the idea from other assessors, is just, if this proposal doesn't pass and it needs to be rewritten, this assessor would, or this CA would suggest perhaps adding more detail into this. And then also, when you're giving anything less than 5 stars, I think it's helpful, and I've seen this in some really successful, like excellent proposal assessments, is the CAs are saying, the reason I gave it less than 5 stars is, and then write your statement there. Like, the only reason I'm giving this less than 5 stars is it seems that the budget could be more detailed. These are all rounded numbers, and there's only 3 different numbers for a $75,000 proposal. We need a breakdown of those so that we understand that you're really deeply planning. Not that you're not, but we don't know for sure if you're really looking into the numbers or if these are just guesses. You know what I mean? And I mean, that would be a nice thing to be able to say just to the CA, because that is, or just to the proposer, because it is a little bit, suspect. You're kind of questioning whether they, had integrity in their research or not. But you know what I mean? It could read that way, at least to the voters. And you don't want to, I'm not trying to throw suspicion and just generally asking a question, but it's not really a back and forth. So it's hard to put that on there. Anyhow, so with all that in mind, I was kind of thinking like the difficulty being when you're reading a proposal and it's a great idea, but you don't have, there's no back and forth with the proposer. You just have to put, sorry, it's 2 stars because you didn't meet any of these criteria, even though this is an excellent idea. So of course the suggestion is, or the thought is they'll probably have to rewrite again next round. But I was thinking, what if the CAs, and now that we actually have enough to where there's like several more than necessary, and in terms of assessments on each of the proposals, a few funds ago, of course, we didn't have enough CAs or at least assessments on some of them. But what if we were bound to sort of make sure that we were there previously commenting on the proposal before the assessment period, and then we would have the back and forth there with the proposals that we are going to assess eventually. And then once the assessment round comes in, we're only able to come back and assess those that we actually commented on previously, so that there is a back and forth with the same CA that is actually giving the assessment, so that there's some conversation there. Then I think that we could get in one round, a lot of these proposals could be funded, or at least like have a much better written proposal. And then, it would bound us to having to do a little bit more work there. And maybe there's more incentive for that. I don't know. Or maybe there's just more incentive if you do both or something like that. I don't know. But this is just a suggestion, because it seems like the only sort of recourse now is like, okay, it's not that great of a proposal and you're going to have to come back next fund. And we're not bound by going in and commenting before. And I thought most of the ones that I assessed this time, I hadn't commented on before. I just tried to stay within one category at a time, because I really get to know what the challenge was. And then I'd be like, okay, I want to stay in this category only for a little while, because I have pretty good background in this area. So I want to stay in here. And then, but again, I hadn't commented on a lot of them prior, and I found myself kind of kicking myself going, gee, I wish I would have had a back and forth with this proposer. It's such a great idea. So I don't know. There's many different ways that could be solved, like I just mentioned, but it's just a thought that I wanted to throw out there.
Yeah, so I really wish that we can, maybe in subsequent calls, we can actually sit on this particular issue a little bit. Because this is something that Steve Lockhart suggested, so it's not my idea, but I really liked it. In the sense that now we have really good challenge teams, sort of, green shoots, but it's emerging. So what stops us from merging those challenge teams with sort of CA groups in a sense? So that what Benjamin is saying, there is that relationship, there is, and we need to figure it out how that could potentially look. So that, the challenge teams, in addition to the CAs, there's just this constant support. And it just makes things easy all around for everyone on the backside, doing all that front end work just pays dividends on the backside, definitely. So yeah, this is something that I think it's key. Every time we collaborate, right, it always is exponential benefits. So thanks, Benjamin.
You're welcome. Yeah, and I guess the only other little tiny detail would be that we would be able to maybe sign in as a CA and make that comment previously to the assessment round, so that we would be able to keep the anonymity of the CA. So we would have to do like sign in a special way or something if that was ever possible, just because I think a lot of the CAs would be like, wait a second, I thought we were supposed to be anonymous and all this. So just another
Right.
little detail.
Right.
Okay, really good. Seems like we have like some ideas forming for the proposers to be supported with at least some initial guidance up front, some preparation videos and things like that. So these are things that we can talk about further. I think that sounds like a good parallel to some of the other roles. Anything else on that before we go to Amelia?
Yeah, just quickly, because it was mentioned about the sort of the budget, and something that I found, I mean, at the end of the day, all of this is about is people asking for money to fund projects. So the budget has got to be, detailed more. I found, a lot of assessments where they have quite a lot of detail about the project, and when you came to the budget, there was not enough information there. It would be 3 or 4 words describing $5,000 of the budget. And I think it needs to be spelled out to people that to be able to judge a project that's asking for money, you need a lot more detail generally in the budget. So whether that's actually within the title box, well, I know it says, detailed budget, but it doesn't seem to be hitting home.
Right.
Okay, really good. Thanks everyone for these comments. This is great. So some attention to the pre-proposing process, both in how do we work out comments and contributions to the proposals by the community, and then second, what resources do we give the proposers so that they can feel well prepared. And Zoe's point in the chat is there, like, it's okay to not get funded the first time. A lot of people have to go through the process of learning to do it better, but if we can avoid that by helping them be informed in the beginning, then hopefully we should try to do that. Amelia, I lost you. Is your hand down or did you change your mind?
Okay, hi, Amelia is here.
Go ahead.
I was a CA for 6, 7, and then 8. And I want to talk about the clause in the CA guidelines where they mentioned that a CA is supposed to advise. So, for instance, in the feasibility, where there is just one person making up the team, and you as a CA, you want to advise that the person should collaborate with other experts to have a good delivery of the project. I think that advice definitely will form part of the feasibility write-up. Otherwise, where would the CA write it to advise? So I will say that maybe in the Fund 9, there could be another box for such an advice from the CA. Otherwise, then the advice also should be taken from the CA guideline so that the CA is not confused about what to do with such a project or proposal. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks for that, Emilia. That makes a lot of sense.
Great. Okay, fantastic.
Anyone has anything to add to that?
Yep.
I want to ask us a question. So in terms of, we've all agreed that there are quite a few new proposers, and there are going to be new proposers, as we go through Fund 9, 10, etc. There are some issues that are cropping up as we are becoming bigger. And some of these issues are, like there's no clear don't do with that. And especially in this decentralized world, do we really sort of want to make rules as to do, don'ts, or do we just, should we just go freestyle? What myself and Nadia, we also want to find out from everyone here, if anybody has a thought, is in terms of, gray areas, like it's not appropriate, but you can't really say don't do, like, is there a way that we can guide new proposers to behave well? Did I say that? Nadia, help me with that.
Nadia, catch this hot potato. Good. Well, I think we've sensed a lot of things. So one of the things for the CAs is that, we introduced the similarity analysis tool, and then we had proposers that had a lot of similarity across the proposals. We had the question of should the ranking of feasibility or the rating of feasibility include the scope of the proposers' proposals, right? So if someone has a lot, or if someone has a few, or if they're related to each other, like it's an if-then, like if this one gets funded and this one doesn't. So there are some of those questions that are remaining here, and we should start to think about them. It's a challenge because you don't want to limit, but you want to make sure that what we I think need to make sure is that we are incorporating the different facets that can affect the impact, feasibility, and auditability of the proposal itself beyond what's in that proposal specifically, and making sure that we know for the CAs how a lot of the questions were, how do we best address this? So that really kind of comes back to the proposal preparation, and we didn't have guidelines for some of these things, and we didn't have a position on any of these things. So we just sort of did the best we could as we went. But if we can think about some of those and start to get a little bit of opinions on the table, I think that would be very helpful, so that in the next fund, there's both clarity for the proposer and for the CA.
Yes.
Zoe.
Yeah, about that, I think that honest actors are transparent about how many proposals they have and how they are connected to each other. I've seen a lot of examples for that, because it even gets advised by Catalyst School, like if your project is very big and stuff, you can make several proposals. And yeah, if you stumble over the fact that you as a CA find out that several proposals look the same, and there's no information about how they are combined or something, that brings up some suspicion and stuff. And I kind of feel like this should not be some detective's work or something, but a honest and transparent process where you ask for money as a proposer, as a person with a project. And yeah, so I really wanted to say that honest actors are transparent about that.
So there has been some thinking that maybe in Fund 9, with that particular issue, there might be opportunity to sort of put, this is something that it's not my idea. It's something that Daniel has said previously somewhere else, that maybe there could be a space that, requires proposers to sort of cross-link all the other proposals. So with that particular one, there could be, so people can put in, whatever many proposals they want, but at least they have to, Zoe, like you're saying, they have to make that transparent so that anybody looking at that knows that these are the other proposals in this category. So thanks for that. Another thing that I am sort of also wondering is, in line with that and other issues that seem to be coming up, how hardline should we be in terms of providing guidance? Vanessa, you have something to say?
Yeah, just on that question, I think that is one of the issues I noticed in the proposal form that maybe could have been worded better. There is a question at the bottom that says something like, is this a new proposal or is it related to other proposals? But it kind of is just about things that are related to this proposal. But I think what Zoe's talking about is getting a picture of the overall work that particular proposer or team is trying to do. So maybe that just needs to be a separate question.
Yeah, so yeah, that was the thinking, that it would be sort of separate, or that section will be reworded to actually make sure that all other proposals listed by that particular proposer or group of proposers is all listed there. So yeah.
Couldn't it be something like when you're like on eBay or Amazon, you can see the seller and it says what other things are they selling? Like, couldn't it just be like integrated into the UI, like where we just see like, anybody, and the proposer themselves or anyone that's on there listed with them, like if any one of them has another proposal, couldn't we just have like a click link to it? Like say other proposals proposed by anyone that is named on this proposal, and then just click on that to see, or it could even have like a number in there, like in parentheses, like 3 other proposals. We could see, oh, there's 3 proposals that are linked to people that are also on this one. Could be different projects, could be the same project, and then we could just click on that if we're curious. And then, but make sure that people know that it's totally fine to do that. Like if you're trying to fund this one aspect of your company on this proposal, and then another proposal, you're trying to fund a completely different project on your company, that's totally fine, so they don't feel like they're penalized for it or something like that. But just like, we don't want double funding, I think is what we're saying, right? Like double funding on the same item, like, for different.
Yeah.
That and to have a sense of the scope of what someone's working on, for to be able to ascertain feasibility in the same way that you're looking for someone's team and background to ascertain feasibility, that you're able to consider fully the person's potential work, not so that we've been limited, but so that you can take that into consideration and think about it as you're looking at it. So that's really
for sure.
here. That's the question here, is should we be doing that? And if so, how can we do that in the least limiting way for the proposer to be able to freely work on their work?
Right. And that question in audibility, by the way, could even be way more clear. It's, or maybe another one added, but it says right now, please provide information on whether this proposal is a continuation of a previous funded project in Catalyst, or an entirely new one, which doesn't entirely link anything to each other. So if it was rewritten, or maybe another question added to, that could even be better.
Yeah. There are a lot of very quickly, there are a lot of great comments in the chat. So because we're recording this, we will likely capture these. But Stephen is also saying that sort of add all your budgets and put it in each of your proposals. That's another way to go. So thanks.
So these are good thoughts, and we'll have to really think through them so that we can make it, so we can help everyone do their best, right? Because just like some people have great ideas and the proposal is hard to write, sometimes it's completely feasible what you're suggesting, but you might not be able to convey that easily. So we need to make sure that if we create something like this, I think we really think about helping people be successful at it and not creating situations where they feel like it might be a detriment that they are being ambitious. Yeah.
Mhm.
James.
Yeah, just on that point there, I think we've got to be careful if we're using this visibility of other proposed projects to judge feasibility, because we haven't got any clue of the individual's circumstances outside this proposal fund. They might be running 4 businesses, have a young family, and be planning to like hike up a mountain during the next 2 months. So the fact that somebody has only got 2 or 3 proposals in a round doesn't mean they're going to be any less able to fulfill them than somebody who's got 10 proposals.
Okay, so in the sense of, or in the spirit of using this time to sense things and come up with initial ideas, I think we've identified this as something to think about, that we need to create some sense of I always struggle for the terminology here. It's not the expectation, but some sense of like some guidelines around this and best practices here. And forgive my choice of vocabulary if that doesn't quite do it, but we need to think further on this so that we can help people get to it. So Benjamin.
A different thought that I had was about okay, so before I ever, when I first started going into town halls, I would hear people every once in a while say, you should become a CA first, and then if you have proposals to propose, it might be helpful to do that, or something like this. So they would say it like here and there in the conversation. I then, the next fund, I ended up actually being part of 2 different proposals. And then, a couple funds later, here I am actually being a CA for the first time. And I'm thinking back to those proposals and having read rigorously through the community advisor assessment guide and like really gotten to know these different 3 sections and really understood how they might better look, right? And assessing them point by point, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so much more ready to actually propose. And I'm thinking like, wow, maybe that could be more like rigorously suggested to people, because I feel like it's only been briefly mentioned here. And I feel like I have to say, I don't know, maybe I'm just like, maybe that's just my learning style personally or something, but I got so much from assessing that I feel like is going to go into, and I was thinking back to the proposals that I proposed before, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I didn't do this, 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 and this. That's why this one didn't get funded, or, whatever. And now I understand, even though I had comments from a CA at that time that I didn't really quite like digest, because, I hadn't gone through this process that taught me so much. So I don't know, I almost think that, maybe, I don't know if it could even be that like, there's some sort of benefit given to those who have, I don't know, that wouldn't make sense. But anyway, I don't know if it's something where, I think it would be kind of silly to like make sure that everybody that's proposing has definitely been a CA in the past. That probably would be like an unnecessary barrier, but at the very least, like it could be mentioned more often or something, I don't know, in the town halls or something where, please make sure to be a CA, because it's not that difficult. You don't have to be here forever to do it. You can learn in one round to do it. And I guess I thought I really needed to be much more experienced before I did it. And I realized that wasn't the case exactly. So just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, that's a great point. So in WADA, we bring quite a few, people into the ecosystem, proposers. And we always tell them that the best way to be a really good proposer is to be a CA. And as you were talking, I was wondering if, somebody comes into the ecosystem early, it's like, hey, you have to be a CA, but then, you are right. Does that become another hoop and barrier for people to jump through? So yeah, great discussion.
Zoe.
Yeah, I think that those are very important points being raised. But I also think that this learning process, whether it is being a CA or going to Catalyst school, attending workshops and stuff, I think that we should ask for this work for proposers to find out what Catalyst is and why they are getting money from it. Because I don't know, that was also the point which I had in mind when I said it's okay to not get funded for the first time, because it doesn't mean that if you don't get funded for the first time that your idea is not good, or we are not assessing whether your idea is good. We are assessing whether it is good for Catalyst and inside of Catalyst and for Cardano. And yeah, that's not necessarily a barrier. It's just a a context where they are in.
Become a good citizen before you ask for money, kinda.
Yeah, kinda.
Yeah. It does make sense, right?
Okay, so we have, it sounds like a little bit of thought about how do we help people find their way into a role that will help them learn about the ecosystem so that they can do the things that the ecosystem makes available to them, kind of a thing. Ways to do that. Very probably. Steve.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, it's a really long-term view to think about it this way, Nadia, but I think it's one that we really should investigate. And I think it's hard to investigate right now. You know, like when we're still running on a test net. I mean, I just came out of the Wolfram analytics chat, and, you know, they don't have access to a lot of statistics, right? We're running this on a test net, and there's no access to it, and we can't really analyze how people are voting, what people are voting on. And in spite of all of our efforts, you know, I know that everybody's working hard to be transparent and all of that. There's no quick and easy source to see, although I was just given a link to a document I wasn't aware of, you know, to the status of funded proposers. How have they met their objectives? Have they been paid all of the money? You know, like that kind of stuff is hard to, you know, it's just not at our fingertips, so to speak. But, you know, when we're at that point, I really feel, just for myself, I really feel like we should be thinking about, you know, encouraging that on the ground person coming into the community to learn, you know, about Cardano, about how successful projects are made. You know, what is a community, you know, in you know, I don't know where, Colombia, what do they have to do to actually get some of the value in their community on the blockchain through Cardano? You know, and I know that with the people that I'm working with, we're working on solutions for those people. I think that the Catalyst community should also be working on, you know, developing those kind of mentoring and incubating people so that when they do come in, they don't make a shitty proposal and you say, oh yeah, it's okay, you just iterate. You know, I mean, there's nothing to say that they can't learn how to make a good proposal and their first proposal be good, you know, if we provide that infrastructure of education for them. You know, and I think that we can save a lot of emotional anxiety that we've all experienced over the last year because those tools weren't there. You know, I'm just saying in the future, you know, we can kind of head that off, you know, because that's wasted energy, you know, and we can make that nice for people to come into the community and learn how to build something for themselves. And the community will fund it because, you know, it's in our interest. You know, we want to be a world ecosystem. You know, we gotta do it for everybody, not just the DeFi guys.
Mhm. Michael is saying maybe there needs to be an exam, like a driver's license, some knowledge and some application.
There need to be a few. Like we need CAs to take reading comprehension tests. We need a lot of exams. You know, I mean, you know, even now, just this, some of the assessments I read, you know, a couple of the proposals I'm on, you know, these guys, they liked my proposals, but they totally misunderstood it. You know, so I was kind of like hanging there. I was like, should I reject their proposal because they gave me a good score, but they didn't understand it at all. You know, and I don't know what to do as a proposer in that situation. You know, because I don't know if voters are actually reading the assessment, but it's one of those things that, you know, we can learn how to keep out the CA bots. It seems to me we ought to be able to learn how to make sure that people understand what they're reading. But that's tricky.
So we have talked a bit in the CA process about just making it a little bit more of a robust entrance into that process. And that's a challenging and loaded question, right? Because, you know, do you create something that actually like certifies someone to do it? Certifies is totally the wrong word, but do you help, what do you do to make sure that someone has come into this correctly? Because there's such an impact. And, you know, for me, I keep hearing this need for sort of more preparation in all areas, preparation in the pre-proposal deadline phase, preparation for each of the roles, and preparation for being a part of the overall process, not to be exclusive, but to have provided that and to give our best work, because there's a lot of collective wisdom in this room, right? There's a lot of collective wisdom across our ecosystem, and you know, making sure that that's available and utilized sounds like would make a lot of a difference here as well, in addition to the preventative work, to preventing bad acting kind of stuff that we've been doing. So
well, and I'd like to point out, you know, like that what I was just describing as an educational process for people who want to come in and create something and propose something to the community. I mean, I know that everybody who's working on improving the CAs is working hard on this, but you know, like this is a great job, you know, for anybody. And if they're coming from another culture, you know, maybe there's more, you know, several more steps in educational stuff for CAs that can be done so that, you know, the context of the proposals is clear to somebody who's, you know, coming from a non-Western culture, right? Because I don't think anybody should be excluded. I think we should be open and permissionless at every part of the community. But, you know, we have to understand that this has really been made by a bunch of tech geeks. You know, we've got to like make the onboarding easier for people who are not tech geeks.
Steve, maybe you and I can write a proposal to have a little class for you know, future CAs that isn't required, but if somebody wants to be a CA, they can come in and we can you know, assess a few proposals together over a 3-hour course or something like this, and you know, make that available a couple times every fund or something. I don't know. That's an idea I'm throwing out there. Feel free to get a hold of me if you want.
Carter School is looking for collaborators and content.
yeah, Mike.
I guess see if you can hear me, right?
Yep.
Good. No, I've been involved in the CA process since fund, I don't know, 5, 4, maybe something like that. And in the past have also suggested a kind of 2-part thing. And I think we've been talking a little bit about that. And I don't, right now, the formal structures of where to do that, I'm not exactly sure, but a 2-part process that's incentivized might not be a bad idea to be able to do what we were talking about in the very beginning, among other things, which is, you know, to give people who aren't really shaping their proposals, you know, as well as they could to get to the stage where we're going to do the final assessment and then hand it off to voters. I think that's, you know, I think we've all who've done this before have experienced proposals that were really green, and it is frustrating, I think, to be able to say, oh, I didn't get it this time. I'm going to, you know, wait another 3 or 4 months or whatever till the next time. That's fine. You can iterate, as we've said, but I think a 2-part process could also weed out certain things so that we get more refined proposals. And the comment section, or the comment period or whatever, is exactly that period, right? But how do we do it more formally, perhaps, or even as a CA, or I don't know, experienced CA or something like that, sort of to go in and say, you know, can we help shape the proposals before they're turned in for a final draft? I don't know. I just feel like there's a lot of time when I'm in the last fund, I remember getting frustrated with some of the proposals that I took, which hadn't had so many reviews, because I was like, oh, well, these that have 5, you know, I shouldn't maybe look at, let me look at these. And a lot of times there are ones that people, and this is something with the incentive that I think is wrong, that if you have a winning proposal, you get more rewards if you've reviewed it. I think that's, you know, as we say in English, ass backwards or whatever, sort of, because that incentivizes people to skim through and look at the best proposals and give them 5 stars and go, hey, you know, voters, vote these, as opposed to saying, here's a real critique, you know, and it takes time to do the critique properly. And that's what you get paid for, you know. And I'm very slow. I don't do very many proposals really, but the ones I do deeply and do thoroughly. And I think now that we're getting more and more detailed in our challenge settings, for example, I'm a filmmaker. I've taught it for 15 or 20 years. I know how to evaluate documentary film and media production kind of proposals. I don't know, you know, much about developer stuff, so I don't even go there, right? And the more we get specific about, you know, our expertise as CAs, the more we can, I think, you know, do a deep dive into something properly and you know, read the guidelines, of course, but I don't know. It's a little too late now, I feel sometimes, to say, okay, guys, go back to the drawing board, you know, wait till the next fund, if in fact they haven't been schooled in enough. And there are a lot of tools, and there could be more tools, of course, from the Catalyst School, or proposals that could be written, and you know, people could be onboarded in a better way. But I feel like, how do we, you know, can we use the question, you know, advice period, you know, in the whatever it's called, I'm blanking it right now, to actually do a kind of incentivized review and then go to a second stage? Just an idea.
Yeah, that's something that has been talked about quite a bit in terms of, let's do more. It comes back to the front end work that always pays, and then we all get back to, well, that's not incentivized, right? So yeah, earlier on I had shared an idea that Steve had about sort of merging more the challenge teams with the CAs. And maybe because the challenge teams are sort of being incentivized right now, it might not be a whole lot. Maybe what we need to be looking at is maybe increasing the what do you call it, the incentives in that group, and then figuring out something that could be a way to go. Yeah.
Right.
Danny, you had your hand up. Were you going to say something, or you? It's good. Before maybe we go to Vanessa.
It's good. I was going to say something, but then I was listening to your conversations and I sort of drifted away, and it's totally fine. Like, there's so much gold here that we can continue.
Perfect.
Maybe it will come back to me, but.
Sure. Mike, were you, did I interrupt you?
No, I was, you know, there are always thoughts, of course. For example, I don't know, earlier in the chat, I think I threw something out that said, you know, for example, auditability is usually where proposals fall short. I kept writing that. I was like, you know, you're not really telling me how you're gonna, you know, have good KPIs and metrics and stuff. Anyway, so these are things that, you know, I think, you know, we can pool, you know, and save the chat. You know, you can save it and archive it or whatever, because the chat's got a lot of good stuff, as you said, and things like that. But I think that has to be done earlier than at this stage, where the CAs do their assessing, and, you know, and unfortunately, people haven't, maybe they didn't know, like was said really early on, like a lot of people do know, I know how to write pitch decks and stuff, but, you know, and I teach it. So it's sort of like, I can say that pretty early. And I don't have a lot of time to sit there and go through lots and lots of proposals in that early stage. This time I didn't at all. I just chose not to. I was like, I just want to go fresh as a CA and look at things cold turkey. Maybe that's wrong, but that's what I did. And I could, focus in on these, things very specifically and keep, I don't know. Last fund I had COVID when the CAs were doing it. So mine were a little bit blurry. And I can say that one of mine got thrown out for a bad reason. I'm just going to throw this out there. It was thrown out because I did a very quick calculation about their budget and said they were asking for 60% of it. And it was wrong the way I did it. And then they got a flag, from the proposer saying, this guy can't even do math, and it was thrown out. But it was a very good, I think, critique of their proposal. Right. Unfortunately, it was thrown out and it wasn't even, up for rewards or whatever, but oh well. So there's some issues there.
Thanks.
Yeah, this is a good session. It's great.
I feel you on that, Mike. I was just recorded on a YouTube video the other day saying 5% of 20,000 is 100, and I was like something inside me hurt when I said it, but I didn't correct it, and I couldn't figure out why I was in pain. And then after the interview was over with, I realized what happened. So, yeah. You mentioned the comments section there, Mike, and this is something that I've felt for people who are really serious about being a CA, right? And for people who seriously want to see proposals improve through the funding round, I have wanted for a long time to see more integration between the CAs and the challenge teams, because the challenge teams might not necessarily be good assessors of proposals, right? But they should be able to, if they're on a challenge team in the first place, they should be able to point people in directions where they need help. And sometimes that's just a matter of saying, hey, you need to be in another challenge. But sometimes it's like, you got a couple of things here wrong. We're going to point you at this guy and he comments on these types of proposals early in the process so that you can improve it before the assessments happen, right? That's, to me, that's the larger service that should be happening that in this building phase that we've been in for a year, we're not making that connection, right? The whole idea of a 12-week process is, it's a process, you get to iterate, you get to improve it as you get feedback. But, when it comes to the CAs and where the hard numbers come in, you don't get that information until it's too late as a proposal. And I'd like to remove that gap. And I don't see how we can remove that gap unless we integrate challenge team functions with CA functions. And I think that if we can figure out how to do that, then we can make it easier for the CAs, make the challenge teams more productive in being a challenge team, and also just make it easier for proposers to have a good proposal that's been voted on. So.
I think
it's a great idea.
Mercy was just mentioning something about maybe even funding, giving a little bit more incentive or something like that to challenge teams for stuff like that, I think, right, Mercy?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Because, a lot of, we do things because we're incentivized. The reason that CAs don't begin early is that there is no incentivization. And that's good. We need to have whatever incentive is, whether it's a reputation or whether it's money. We all do things for incentivization. So same with the challenge teams. At this point, we're not sure how much of their incentive will drive them to sort of help a bit more at the front end. But I think that these are things that we can still keep thinking about and then, see where it goes. Nadia, were you going to say something?
I think Vanessa's been waiting a long time, so it's your turn.
Okay.
You're up.
I was just quickly going to respond to what Mercy said, that I think that, that's really true, the idea of incentivizing CAs to get involved earlier. But for me, I think that raises the issue of anonymity, which is perennial. It keeps cropping up. But if you've kind of handheld somebody and then you're CAing them and you want to say, look, they're still not there, they're going to feel so betrayed if they know it was you. So even though we've almost got to the stage of going, oh, maybe anonymity is not the greatest idea, I think maybe it still is. But the other thing that I was going to say before, and I'm sorry if I'm hogging time here, but just wanted to kind of come back to something that Steve Lockhart said and that Mike said as well. We hear a lot in the community about domain expertise for the developer side and for techies. And I just want to raise the point that there are other forms of domain expertise in Catalyst, but people don't seem to respect them. I see people who've got no clue about filmmaking or education or community engagement, reviewing proposals about those things without trying to find out or research or work out that they don't know. And I think that's really problematic, because if somebody did that about a tech proposal, people would just go, they've got even no right to speak. Do you know what I mean? So I just think we just need to respect each other's skills a little bit more than we do.
Yeah, that's so true. You know, and I just, an OG in Cardano, I just saw him recently on a YouTube video saying that community building should always be done for free. And I just thought, what fucking planet is this guy from? You know, I mean, it's like he has no idea. There's no idea what he's talking about, but he's, you know, he's saying that stuff, you know, and it's just boggled my mind. I was so glad I wasn't on the show with him, because I probably would have really stuck my foot in it.
Really good. I want to make some space to make sure we talk about it a little bit, which is there's been feedback in different avenues about the fund timing, and we've all sort of just felt it and talked about it, and it's out there. So maybe we take some general feedback. How did it go with the proposal deadline being extended? There were comments about the proposers needing more time for flagging. We've been talking here about like a special time in the week or a special week maybe for these comments to be really the key focus, which didn't happen in the same way. Spreading the fund out, and I'm not offering that these things are possible, so we should say if they're not possible, but also maybe just like some feedback generally about the cadence of the fund and ideas for what's just what everyone's experience was. Go ahead.
I mean, we're all knackered, aren't we? We're exhausted. It's just too much. But what I was thinking the other day is, what if the cadence of the fund stayed the same, but it was normal for people to put in a proposal that covered 6 months? So you're not proposing every time. Maybe that takes a bit of the stress and knackeredness out of it. Just a thought.
I've naturally moved towards that recently. I think it's just, yeah, it makes a lot of sense not to do them on each 3 months. But I guess it depends on where you're up to in your proposals and whether you want to establish an early level proposal or whether it's an ongoing thing.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, I agree. But I just think that I see or hear sometimes in the community a little bit of disapproval of people who put in for anything longer than 3 months of work. And it's just like, well, you can't do that. I just think maybe we need to look at the fact that it can be a good idea. That's all.
You need to normalize it.
James.
Yeah, I think that's a really sort of sound idea, because you know, a lot of these projects, I haven't got experience from previous rounds, but you know, there's some quite large projects, and to actually sort of break them down for 3 months, I know you can, you know, you can set things up for the next round, but 3 months isn't very long when you're trying to get a project off the ground. So you know, to have the opportunity to set out your goals for 6 months, I think for larger projects, it's going to be a lot easier. It doesn't mean you're going to necessarily have to overreach on sort of funding targets, but it just means you can probably actually lay out your proposals a little bit clearer.
seems like a point of communication would be, I mean, in other words, if you're someone, it all depends on time. It's so funny. Somebody said, oh, well, I had 200 hours to spend doing this, BSAA work or whatever. So, well, not everybody does, right? So it depends on that, depends on how green you are when it comes to proposal writing or whatever. And maybe there should be an option to say, hey, I want to put in a proposal, and it could be a certain kind of category of proposal. Maybe it's an early phase proposal, and it could be targeting the next fund, really 6 months out, or something to be assessed. So you could have a mentoring, situation throughout that 6 months, potentially starting in, say, Fund 9 next, and say, well, I want to shoot for funding in 10. I don't know, just another way to do it, rather than saying, try to cram it all in. Everybody's got to compete. There's 10,000 proposals next fund or whatever, and then there's we've got to grow like this crazy with the CAs and the VCAs and all the work, and you could sort of weed out some of that the more green stuff that's not as developed as it should be. I don't know. I like the idea of having an extended timeline for people who need it, even if they don't know that they need it, maybe.
Perhaps in each category, we could just have maybe 4 spots for 6-month funded proposals. And maybe there's, and so it would be a separate category within each challenge. We could have, 4 or 5 spots, and they could, I don't know exactly how that would work or what the details would be, but that's just a thought, because that is so true. Or even like, because I read some proposals that were, their deliverable was at the end of 6 or 8 months in their proposal, and I'm thinking, okay, how do I break it to them that you can't ask for 8 months of funding right now? You got to ask for 3 months at a time. And I honestly, I found myself going, am I right about that? Or like, because the proposal was written so perfectly, and I was like, maybe I'm wrong here. And I'm like looking at the notes, and I'm going, wait a second, how do I? And there wasn't really anything super definitive, but anyway, that's kind of how I came away from it, just wondering and if I was even doing it right or whatever. But
so the reason for this, it's not it hasn't been a hard guideline, but what has happened is that because of the way Catalyst is, right, people are somewhat incentivized to get something than nothing, right? So people might put in a small proposal, and it tends to be 3 months, so that at least they can get some funding to, and it works also to the effect that then they can prove themselves that, okay, this is my first time, I got a little money, I was a good steward, therefore I can come back for more. And that seems to sort of, it's becoming almost a culture within the community, where people are just, let me just do 3 months, higher probability of getting funded, plus the community feels that they are not risking too much by giving me too much money in a sense. Like, this is still an ongoing conversation, but as we've said, maybe we should, as the funds are getting bigger, maybe we should come to a place where it is okay for people. So I was reading Rue, I hope I'm saying that right, and he was talking about tech solution and platforms, and how he had sort of marks deducted because his budget was sort of too big. So we need to come to a place where for people that have done some work, they've proved themselves, we should make it okay for them to come back with bigger asks, and not sort of insinuate that in a sense they're being greedy, in a way. Yeah, that's what I have to say about that. I think I will give it back to Nadia.
Vanessa, did you take your hand down?
I was literally just going to say pretty much what Mercy just said. So.
Okay. So I want to take here just a moment to start to wind us down, because we've talked about a lot today and there's a lot more to do. But I'd like to ask this group of very thoughtful and involved people here, what are some suggestions for how we should go forward with this? Should we identify some of the things that need working on and sort of try to make little like working groups? Should we come together a little bit regularly as a kind of theme topic discussion like we did today and start to think about these things together? How can we take all this goodness that is going to be obviously chronicled here and keep it moving forward? I'd love to just hear from the group about what ways you think would be most effective to do that. Which almost certainly will create total radio silence. But let's see if we can throw some ideas out. Does it? I'll just let it very broad there. Let's start some feedback and then see if we can come to some steps here. Go ahead, James.
Yeah, obviously, like a session like this, you get a load of stuff thrown up, which then is recorded. If like following, I mean, after town hall is always pretty good because people are around for the town hall. So for example, then for the subsequent weeks, you could split off a couple of topics from a sort of just an idea session like this to then going into a bit more detail. So this is just a kind of a pool for ideas, but then in the subsequent week, you could take 2 of the ideas or 3 of the ideas. Before the session, people could know what's going to be discussed, whether it's put out through Discord or Telegram. So then you can actually put some thought behind it. So then more, people won't just be reacting to the sort of trail of thought. They'll be able to have some pre-thought put in with the idea of then being able to actually make some decisions to start implementing some changes.
So,
go ahead, Phil.
Hello. Something to remember as well that we already have some systems in place to solve these problems, and they're through the way of proposals. So a part of some of the problem with dealing with things in groups like this is that we don't have the mechanisms of voting, decision-making, recording, reporting back. How do people who are not here in 6 months' time see how the decisions were made and adjust them? All these types of things. So just keep that in mind as well. And we are in a permissionless system. So if you see a gap and you see a way to solve that problem, like Benjamin's saying it, he wants to run some education material, there's a process to be able to implement that. And therefore we don't need to create another layer of governance over the top of other layers of governance. We will need those as time goes on, and these are valuable discussions. But just keep in mind, we can keep proposing. Each 3 months there's a fund. We can build the tools, we can build the systems, we can work together in groups. We can, if 5 people here want to solve some particular thing and need some money to do it, we have a system to go through that. And it's already in place, and it's agreed by the community because it's voted on by the community already. So if you can fit into anything you can fit into existing systems, try to do that. And any new systems we need to build, let's keep working on those. That's what I would say.
But I'd say that's the perfect opportunity though for people to, throw ideas around to then work towards using the existing system. So if we had a discussion about a couple of points that were raised, that then the group collectively sort of has a think about it, and 2 or 3 people are on the same line, and it gives them the opportunity to get together and branch off and come up with a proposal to sort out the problem that's been identified. It might not be something that sort of springs at you immediately, but it just gives that opportunity for the connection.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, at this point, I totally agree with you in the sense that we need to get the community support. Okay, yeah, you can do this.
You have a lot of distortion.
You're audio's in need of help. Mercy.
Is that better?
There you go.
Yeah. Okay. So no, all that I was saying was that I totally agree with what Phil is saying, because in a sense there's a process whereby we can get the community say so, blessing to sort of implement some of these thoughts, which is a great idea. And then on the other side of that, how soon do we want to implement changes? So yeah, I don't know how we can do that. Are there some quick wins that, I'm not trying to put Daniel or anybody on the spot here, but is there anything that can quickly be, especially the tech side of things? For instance, the extra boxes. But then it goes back to what Phil said. Is that something that most people in the community agree to, or just how many people? Yeah, I think 29 people here are agreeing to. So yeah, that's another sort of decision we need to take.
I'd like to jump in here a little bit. Everyone's hearing me okay? It seems to me that there's really an education piece that could be addressed in a really systematic kind of way. And, like learning, one thing about learning, we talk about learning styles, but really everybody learns by doing. And information by itself is not ever going to be enough to change behaviors. We need to apply, right? We need to give it a shot. We need to get our hands dirty. And we need to know what we need to know, first of all. So I'm noticing that there doesn't seem to be like a basic curriculum. Like what do people need to know how to do? Like, what does feasibility mean? How do you get to the KPIs in a challenge? You have to go to the About tab. Like all these things that people need to do, like the tasks. So I've proposed a needs assessment, and I hope that gets funded. I said this in the chat, but nobody responded, so I'll just say it in case people weren't reading the chat. I proposed a needs assessment. I hope that gets some traction, because it would be, the concept is to do a crowd-funded focus group on what people need to know. What people need to know how to do, not what's nice to know, but what people actually need to be able to do, and a whole list of all those things. And that would already give people, the different stakeholders could use that. If people wanted to develop training materials, they could use that needs assessment. And actually people like new proposers could just go through it and say, do I know how to do that? Do I know how to do that? Do I know how to do that? And some of it is procedural, like finding stuff, but some of it could also be conceptual, like, what does feasibility actually mean? Like, read this and which one's feasible, which one's not feasible kind of deal. Same with impact and so on. So I'm planning to be around here for a while. So if I don't, this might take a while, I realize, but anyway, that's what I'm on. And I just wanted to say that. And if there's any questions or comments, thanks.
Really good. And we'll leave the chat, maybe some responses in the chat for you there too.
Oh, sorry.
I think Danny's next.
Thank you. So what really worked well, and I think we can probably take inspiration in terms of how to process this, is the way how we approach those CA and BCA updates. And we sort of like agreed. First of all, we created a comprehensive list based on like a brainstorming session like this one. And there were actually a number of them, my reports here and there. And then it was sort of like bulleted of like, what are the items that are available? And then sort of we divided and conquered, right? That these are the things that now we can plug in, that the team looked at and identified, great, for Fund 8, we're able to do A, B, C. Maybe we can do the next 3 items, like a stretch goals. And then we looked at what the community could run entirely on the side, and then sort of merging those efforts together. and potentially looking at the crossover, like what are the things that really require both of our sides to be working shoulder to shoulder, and what are the things that we can do independently at the same time as we're doing that. So if we're able to adopt a similar model, it will be much easier than for the IO side to understand where can we push and put our foot on the pedal and sort of like create a set of commitments and maybe stretch goals for Fund 8, and then maybe understand like what could be like Fund 9 and beyond. And I know we have some of those things that we can then recover from the CA document, because we've already completed the Fund 8 part, and we also had some like Fund 9 and beyond initiatives, and perhaps now we can bring that forward and treat everything like a backlog, and then decide amongst all of us, like how do we bring those things which bring the incremental but instantaneous value first, right? So that we can get those most valuable things like out of the shop and into the hands of people, so that we don't, make big changes just like every like 6 months or once a year when we look at these things, because there's a lot of different stuff. So I like that model, because then it allowed me to take that back into the team and translate that in a way that it's comprehensible and create a sense of ownership and alignment, without sort of looking at each other like, should I do it or should we do it, and where are we doing it the same thing, and are we not doubling down? So I like that, and if we can approach a similar way for this, I think that would be really good, just simply based on like how it turned out for all the other things, and it brought a lot more clarity. So just throwing it out there in terms of like where we could go from here.
Yeah, I can agree on the stuff that we should make stuff more clear, and also that there needs to be education. But I first wanted to emphasize that Catalyst School has some very good resources, and they actually go over many things, or they have a really good onboarding process. I made the one for proposers. And yeah, the other thing I wanted to say is I kind of don't think that you okay, like you can make stuff clear that you have to include in the proposal, but you can't really, as a CA, tell the person how your project will work. And I kind of sometimes get the feeling that from the assessments there's asked very much. I mean, we can give our expertise, we can give our thoughts, and I agree completely that there is no time to comment on them and to improve them in the same fund, and maybe that should be overthought again. But yeah, really, it's the assessments are not here to make your project working or better. They just are the insight on how this fits into the mission of Catalyst as such.
Go, Benjamin.
Just wanted to mention really quickly that I really loved, and I don't know, I don't want to, I just wanted to mention that I really loved the sections, the like this squared off sections of impact, feasibility, and accountability, or I mean, yeah. Am I saying that right? Auditability, yeah. Auditability. So anyway, that was extremely helpful. And looking back at proposals from Fund 7 and before, my mind wouldn't have been able to as easily really kind of, parse those out. And sometimes the proposers didn't either. And things were a little bit more jumbled. So that was a really awesome addition this round that really helped me out. Thank you.
Okay. Maybe we'll start the going once, going twice. we'll give it maybe like 2 or 3 more minutes for new stuff to be lodged. And then as we're making the space for that, it sounds like, Danny, that's a good start here from this conversation. It's a robust one. There's a lot of different things in here. So if we start going that direction, then we'll be able to, I'm doing that terrible thing where I try to talk and read the chat at the same time. So we'll be able to have a little bit of some things that can be addressed and things that are longer term and fresh ideas for proposals and collaborations between people. And really sort of put another button on a different part of the process of the whole thing. Makes us all able to be superhuman in our creation of new and exciting stuff. Mercy, anything else here? What do you think?
I know that we didn't talk too much about the fund timeline. I know that there are some issues there, but maybe people are tired. It's a bit of it's quite late in the day for a lot of us. So Nadia, we're going to do this again and maybe see if we can get some fresh feedback as well, or do we need to, start working on this before we come back for more?
There was some thumbs up to you just saying that. Is there a sense that we should maybe gather again over the next couple of weeks? I know that there's like fatigue for getting together every week, but maybe that's really just seasonal here, that we could do this over this period of time when everything's fresh in our minds, so we don't start on it again later. Does that, if we offered this again next week or 2 weeks from now, any feedback on that? Is that something that the group would like? A discovery working group, that's cool, Mike. Zoe, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say when I joined this group, I didn't know that it was about this kind of feedback. So I think it would be cool to just make it again. And so some of us now know what this room is about. We can have our ongoing thoughts, and we can also talk to others. So I think just repeating it for now we know what we are talking about. I think that would be a good idea.
Great. Okay. Thanks for that, Danny.
At that point, it would be helpful to rename the group, or at least I actually had no idea where I was going either. I just happened to be like, I'm so glad I came in here. Yeah, to that point, it'd be nice to rename it conversation about, this type of stuff. I don't know how you would exactly name it, but
Conversation about this type of stuff is what you.
but I mean, conversation about CA work, or I mean, that's what I got out of it. But anyway, I think it was a little bit more broad than that. But
I think we called it F8 discovery session, or maybe I guess it's kind of like, it's not really problem sensing. It's more of like collaborative improvements kind of a thing. I don't know. As long as we call it something that we all know as a beginning, then there's like a foundation for it to grow from. And Mercy and I can certainly announce it as such in our slides. We'll try to be like as specific as possible so that people know what to expect. But it would be helpful from this group to get some language around what you have experienced so that we call it appropriately. So if you guys can throw some stuff out in the chat or chime in here, that'd be great. Danny.
Yeah, I was just going to reinforce the fact that perhaps it'd be great in between this meeting and the next meeting, maybe we can start working asynchronously on a document, sort of like what are the things, and sort of like prioritizing, moving them a little bit around, so that during the upcoming sessions we could start collectively putting them in a buckets of okay, these seem like quick wins that we could potentially target for fund day. They're just having outside of this meeting, just whenever somebody has a time to give a thought, okay, that could be something that maybe is possible for fund 9, maybe something more complicated needs a lot more work and thought process. Maybe that's for later, beyond fund 10 and beyond. But maybe that could be also a good use of time between, so that it's not a meeting next week, maybe it's in 2 or 3 weeks, but having some kind of a sourcing document of a backlog that we can start sort of comparing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Appreciate that.
Great, James.
Yeah, is the intention to stop at the CA process, or will we be incorporating the VCA into this group discussion as well?
We originally, when Mercy and I first talked about it, it was more about, we were sensing from the community the proposal to CA issue with some of the overlap and things not being clear and then causing other issues with updates. So originally we were thinking about, because and also there is no rep for proposers. So but she's funded proposers. The proposers doesn't have like in that same way. So then we started to think about it as we're a whole community. This isn't for any particular group. This is all like all of us who are contributing, thinking about the whole process as it goes. So I think from that vantage point, it makes sense that we would start at the beginning and go through to the end and make sure we don't leave anything out. Yeah. Lynn, sorry, James, is that it?
Yeah, no, it's just because if it was stopping there, I'd want to know where to go for the next bit. So that's good.
Yeah, I think it's a beginning to end thing, maybe even over to the voters. I don't know. I'm throwing ideas out there, but maybe it's a collective decision. Lynn, thank you.
Good morning.
Morning.
Pretty hard for me, right? 4 a.m. wake up and Daniel changed the time again. Thanks, Daniel. Anyway, this is +11, by the way. If anything changing in whatever the main town hall from Eastern Town Hall, if possible, that delay sometime, like as Danny mentioned, that we have some kind of basket and put some kind of documents. So some of us may able to basically not say we aggressively participate, but at least we have a view on. So apart from some type of live voting, so possible that delay somehow, like 48 hours, at least give us some time to digest the data somehow. So again, that's another advantage that give us the chance to contribute. So if possible, that anything that's not really require live hand up. So if it's not, then put it down the documents of some way in terms, some type of, I think Discord would be nice. And then, I will propagate those information to the community. And I'm sure a lot of people will, interested in to contribute into that, even though it's not a primary English in Asia, apart from whatever in some countries, it will help. It will help a lot. It's help a lot if we have some kind of delay. So it helps us a lot. That's pretty much.
Excellent.
Really good. So we have to make sure that we're like comprehensively broad with this document so everyone can contribute. That's important. And Lynn, I'll also say that Joey, who is the toolmakers rep, is working on what we all are, but he's spearheading it, working on making sure there's like a subcircle kind of a person in each place so that can be that kind of communications bridge can remain open. So maybe we can talk then further about having that function in place as a helpful addition, especially through this period of time when things are going to be thought about intensely online.
But Vanessa and I were having some thoughts. Vanessa, do you have anything to say regarding, how this could possibly go forward in terms of, by the time we have the next meeting, at least we have some buckets to bring back, just so we are not just repeating stuff.
Well, I'm thinking we should probably kind of put it out more to the funded proposer community, because I think we've talked quite a lot about potential proposers and we've talked a lot about CAs, but we need to talk more about how funded proposers are experiencing the process, I guess. But yeah, it does occur to me based on what Lynn just said that maybe we could, because me in our funded proposers subcircle might be up for kind of going to Eastern Town Hall and bringing back stuff or something along those lines. But yeah, I mean, what are we going to do about like a next meeting? Because if it's another meeting like this, it's another time that loads of people can't make. So are we planning to have an after town hall again, or are we doing it differently? Because I think maybe we should. I don't know.
Yeah, we need to figure that out. But I think that the first step is let's get the document together. And then we can, yeah, it could be in 2 weeks, it could be even in 3 weeks maybe, but in between then at least we disseminate as broadly as we can, especially if we have a document, then, you know, if we need to even translate it, it's easy to translate and then send it out and then bring feedback.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking Google Docs if that suits everybody, but also we're kind of working on a Miro board at the moment. I don't know if we want everybody to jump into that or if it's helpful for everybody to jump into that or what.
Yeah, maybe we can take it offline with Nadia and figure out what to do. Yeah, but yeah, you had some you had great thoughts, so I thought I should.
But just seeing in the chat, Zoe has just said, where would this document be shared and can everyone work on it? I think, yes, everyone should work on it, but should it just be a Google Doc? Should we just keep it really simple and do that?
Maybe as a beginning to look at, so the document that Danny referenced, and that was an outcome document, so it wasn't the original document. It was like lots of conversation happened, but that was 2 pages, right? So we'll maybe we'll try to maybe, I think it's our function, Mercy, in the sensing part of this, that maybe the 2 of us and whoever else wants to contribute, take what was talked about here today, try to get it into categories with like relevant things for each category, and then may start it there and then disseminate it so people can start to add their ideas and thoughts, and then we'll try to condense it into a reasonably not a novel. How about that? So I don't reasonably not novel, but and then the question is like, where do we send it out and where do we keep this asynchronous conversation going so that we can, to your point, not have people need to be here in order to be in that discussion. That's a question to the group. I guess it would be logical we could put it in the proposers Telegram. I can put it in the VCA Discord server and Telegram. We could start there and say this is happening. And then I guess the document itself could become the conversation piece, but that can also be really messy.
I was going to ask if there's like if there's a channel in Swarm for this conversation ongoing.
Cool.
Is that possible, or does that exist already? Because I feel like this is like pretty substantial conversation to be ongoing.
I think you can just make the channel in Swarm. I don't know. I'm not an admin there or anything, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, I could technically.
Hang on a minute.
But I'm just not sure where.
What if we did, looking at the Cardano Project Catalyst section here, what if we did Fund 9? Like we have Fund 8 and 7 and then all those improvements. What if we start Fund 9 and just start a conversation for Fund 9? Is that a
all right,
thing?
so they call me I just actually logged in to Swarm, so like I can make a channel, you know, I mean, if you guys want to do that.
Yeah, I could just, I was just talking about that I could do that, but I don't know in which category I should put the channel. Is it a community or Swarm? No, general chats.
Well, yeah, under general chats, there's already Fund 8 proposals. We could have like Fund 9 conceptualization or
process improvement.
Yeah,
was a good, yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
I'm doing that. I'm writing it right now. Process Fund 9
Yeah,
process
I'm
improvement.
too. Hey, yo.
I can type faster than you.
What? Are you serious?
How many people are doing it? Let's see who can do it first. Go.
All right, no, I won't do it. I withdraw.
We'll tip whoever gets
Zoe
it first.
This is a mess.
No, it's good. Everybody's trying to help.
Okay.
So you'll I guess for maybe people who aren't there yet, if there are any in this group, could you put the link to it in the chat here?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking that it's not only in Swarm, right? But also like Nadia was saying, also in the Project Catalyst group, right?
Well, that would make 2 places. You'd have 2 conversations going.
Oh, so we want one place, sure.
That's a good place. And then I'll put that in the CA channel so that people know that that's happening, and we just start to put it in our channels. And maybe that's a good thing to say. I don't know. You guys tell me what you think, but it could be something like we go to climate, we go to the women's groups, we go to the different groups, and we say like, hey, this conversation is happening, because it doesn't have to be anyone can and should contribute to this conversation. So we have to put it outside of just the roles that are maybe predominantly here. Danny.
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly mention and build upon the quick thought I put on the chat as well. So I'm slowly trying to repurpose the newsletter and open it up as well to different segments of like things which are relevant to the community. And I did approach Stephen already and Vanessa, I think, in terms of like oversight and providing like a box that could be sent to me before I actually ship out the newsletter. It has a decent reach. So I wanted also to throw out that idea that in terms of like these things and trying to get, more diverse inputs, or just having people an opportunity to be aware of it. If someone wanted to take ownership of like a box, just like you see in the newsletters, I don't know how many actually read them or if they don't end up in spam, but they're in this group, but like a box, a paragraph, and then I can just sort of plug it in. So it will make it easier, because they're usually really time consuming on my part to actually put them together uniquely each week. So in a sense, it helps me, but also in a way I can bring a bit more color to it by resurfacing like different things each week and having, that opportunity to be there. So I just wanted to let you know that there's a space and it's free of charge, no rent.
Okay. How about if I write something about what we've done today and like where people can find us, and then in future, if anybody like, so we can keep it going, because it's a weekly thing, if different people can like bob up and write where we're at, that would be really cool.
Really good.
Try and remind you to, I'll like pass it on, and then whoever gets it can pass it on next time. How's that?
That's good.
That sounds fantastic.
So does it make sense? Why don't we, I just want to respect not cramming this, because there's a lot to digest this conversation. Maybe we'll make it a goal by like next Wednesday at this time to have that document all together, and then we can all work on it together. And then maybe we collectively sense when we want to meet again. So not an after town hall for this group next weekend, maybe not the following, or maybe the following or the following after that. And that will let us have continuous contribution to it, and then also be able to talk it out a little bit. Does that feel like the right rhythm?
I'm not sure. Are you saying that we wouldn't set up the document for a week?
No, I'd say that I'm saying that we'd like try to finalize it by
Oh, I
Wednesday.
see. Right, cool.
All right, unless you want to do it sooner than that.
No. No, I was just thinking it'd be good to put the link to wherever that document is in the newsletter.
By Friday?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we can set it.
You're
set it up now, can't we?
You're such an adventurer. Yeah, that would be good.
Shout out to all you people that bring up stuff that is being said in the chat that isn't being responded to here and there. I have a hard time following both sometimes, so I love it when people bring that up when something hasn't been responded to. Please don't feel like people aren't listening to you if you say something in the chat and it isn't responded to here, because yeah, sometimes I just can't keep track of both.
I most definitely can't. So I hope I didn't skip over anything that really needed to be said. I used to try to do that, and then I just ended up not doing either well. So, okay. So then Vanessa, to that point, we'll make the document, and the first line of the document can say, this document is under construction and will be somewhat finalized to reflect everything by next week. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay. All right. Great meeting, everyone. Thank you.
I really appreciate everyone being here. Yeah, very thankful to each and every one of you.
Thanks for doing it.
All right, thanks, guys. And we'll put this recording up on the Swarm site, YouTube sites, if you want to watch it again for any reason. And I'll keep the chat as well.
Conversation already started over there, guys. If you're interested in keeping going.
Great.
We'll see you later.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye, bye, bye.
Okay.